So, I mean, these are two very different countries in the world, yet they are talking about the same story. So let me go ahead and get started with my slides. Okay. And so the topic is, oh, by the way, before I go ahead, I want to say I won't be able to see any of the questions during the presentation. So if you could just leave them at the end, that would be much easier for me. Okay, so it's going to be I'm going to be talking about cultivating tomorrow's farming with blockchain technology. That's mind-blowing. I mean, blockchain and farming, how does that work? So first story comes from the Gambia, and this is Ebrima Jallo. Ebrima had left, I mean, after high school, he went to Belgium, Germany, Holland, and finally he went to the UK. And then in UK, his life was pretty hard. He said, I had to do everything by an alarm clock. Like he says, once he even had to go to the toilet with an alarm clock because he didn't want to fall asleep in the toilet. Imagine that. He says, life was very, very difficult in the UK. So he thought, he should go back to the Gambia where there's a lot of complaints. And he said, when there's a lot of complaints, there's also opportunities because complaints means problems to be solved. And that means opportunities for an entrepreneur. And also, during the pandemic, he said Europe locked up the vaccine for itself. The Europeans did not think about Africa first, obviously. So he says, if there's any kind of starvation in the future, Africa should grow its own food and not depend on anybody else. He says, we got the lawn, we got the labor power, so we just need to get to work. And he's a Muslim, and Muslims have this animal slaughtering holiday. Like I'm a Muslim too, but we have a different name for it. But he calls it tabasi, and he says he used to buy 5 to 6 sheep every year for tabasi. So one day he says, "Why don't I just keep the female and start breeding these animals?" And he basically bought the Ladum sheep. Ladum sheep is one of the best breeds, and it comes from Senegal. And first, he didn't know anything about raising sheep, and so he was doing all sorts of mistakes, he's saying. But then he started crossbreeding the mediocre type of sheep in Gambia with the Ladum sheep. And he says in 5 generations, you can get 100% Ladum. So first he takes one Ladum and he breeds it with a regular mediocre sheep. Then if he gets 50% Ladum, 50% mediocre. That 50% one, he crossbreeds it with 100% Ladum again. So the child is 75% Ladum. So it goes like that. In 5 generations, he basically has this Ladum sheep, which it goes very expensive in the market, he says. And he started out with 6 sheep. In 7 years, he now has 200. And 90% of these sheep are born on his own farm. So basically, he says you need to follow the genetics of the sheep. The good genetics is what it's all about, he says. That's where the price is. Like the horse race horses. So this one on the screen, it's called EJ. He named it after himself. EJ is Mubarak's son. Mubarak is Muhsin's son, and Muhsin is magistrate's son. So these animals are precious, and they are tracked down in terms of genetics because he's using this animal to reproduce and to get a whole farm full of good genetic animals. And so he started stamping these animals because with each stamp, he has a separate file where he actually keeps the information of their diseases, how much feed they eat, and that's how he keeps track of the animal health. And his lambs come around 30 kilograms in 3 months after they're born. So that's about ready to sell, he says. And he says the key in sheep farming is the feed. So in order to keep the cost of the feed at a certain level, you need to raise your own grass. But when asked the question, okay, so farming in Gambia, why should we go after farming in Gambia to get rich? Why now? He says there are two reasons for this. Number one, this guy has been doing this business for 7 years now, and he used to visit the ministers every time. And basically, he says, I used to get almost kicked out of the office from the ministers until this last minister. This last minister is a woman. And he says this woman is closing her office, getting out of her office, and coming and talking to the farmers, listening to their problems. That's a big, big change. And he says in Gambia, we need more vets. So he's actually able to reach out to the administration and talk about his problems. And for a change, they're listening. But what's more important than that is last year, Gambia imported 50,000 sheep at the Tabasi, which is the Muslims' animal slaughtering holiday. That's 50,000 sheep, he's saying. That's the market size. And the number of sheep he has is only 200. So he's basically saying there is big, big market out there for this Ladum sheep he's raising, and he's recommending this business to everyone who's willing to get rich, because we got the grass, we got the labor power and the place. So we just need to get there to work. But he's also saying you have to learn from others' mistakes. So this is what we have in the Gambia. Our next story comes from Turkey. This is Sencer Solakolu, and he's the owner of Fez Farm in Bursa in Turkey. He's he's the owner of one of the 10 largest dairy farms in Turkey. This guy, his mother, he comes from a wealthy family. And I know none of us are as rich as he was when he was a kid. But what I'd like to share in his story is where he's going with this. So his mother used to import furniture from Indonesia, and his father had a maritime business, and he was basically a spoiled brat. He was sent off to Switzerland to a boarding school for 9.5 years, and then he went to US and never liked US. Everything over there was in plenty, but food didn't taste like food. And when he came back to Turkey, his dad basically told him, don't do anything. You don't know the Turkish market. You don't know anything about Turkey. You'll just go bankrupt. And he basically didn't listen to his dad and went doing something about renovating trucks, and he went bankrupt there. Yet he still couldn't sit still, and he said, meat is expensive in Turkey. I'm going to go into farming. And he said, there's no competition in farming. And he started out with 429 animals in 2009. As of 2023, he had 4,000 animals. His daily milk production is 60 to 65 tons. And in addition to milk, he's also producing sausage. So not only just butcher meat, but he's going all the way to the consumer sausage kind of thing, consumer ready sausage. And his clients are Istanbul's leading gourmet restaurants. His success formula is R&D, research and development. He says the key to success in this business is to find the right feed. In the previous story, we had EJ saying the same thing, feed is important. But in this case, he says he spent 7 years to find the right formula for the right feed. And the feed that he's holding in his hand right now, he says there's cotton, corn, barley, green wheatgrass, and 15 to 16 types of protein in this feed. This is a very specific formula, which took him 7 years to come up with. And he was doing this by reading articles, by working with scientists. Okay, that's number one. Number two, same idea here. This time he's using the collar, the stamp in and the collar around the animal's neck. This collar is basically tracking the animal as per XYZ coordinates. So that means the collar can actually detect if the animal is sitting, how long the animal is sitting, how long the animal is standing, how long it's lying down, how long it's sleeping. So he can actually detect the motion in the animal. It can also measure how many times it ruminates, like chewing the cud, the animal. So how fast does it eat? And when there's milk coming from the animal, they also analyze the fluidity of the milk. So he says, if the animal is happy, then it just lies around, takes it easy. But if there's like gas in the animal, then the animal needs to stand up more. So by looking at the time spent on sitting, standing, lying down, they can actually see if the animal is happy, healthy. Because if you keep the animal happy and healthy, you're going to get good milk, he says. But if the animal is sick or there's some kind of indigestion, then we have to attend the needs of this animal. Many of his friends used to make fun of him because he used to smell like shit, because he's coming from the stables where there's a lot of dung. And when his daughters used to complain about the stink, he was saying, this is the smell of money. Currently, he's working on blockchain technology to trace the sausage to the animal. Now that's mind-blowing. He says, we would like to know what we're eating. So in that sausage, we need to know how many, what this animal was going through before turning into a sausage. So if the consumer is eating this sausage, the consumer has the right to know how many shots of antibiotics or any other kind of medication this animal had, or what the conditions was where it was raised, or how it lived before it turned into a sausage. So he is doing research and development to trace the animal to the sausage. And he is saying what matters for the consumer is not the quantity, like the size of the farm. What matters is the quality of the produce. The milk, the sausage, his prices are quite high. And he says, in Turkey, there is no competition in farming, in the meat market. So you have to go to this business and you're definitely going to make money as long as you're doing research and development. So both, like you can see his family over here. He has 2 daughters and his wife is taking care of the finance of the business. What he's claiming and what EJ is claiming from the Gambia, they're saying similar stuff. They're saying there's a lot of opportunities in farming. Why? Because food, especially meat, is very expensive in Turkey, and we need to be raising our own food in case there's a shutdown again, in case there's import stop or international logistics stop. We got to be able to feed ourselves rather than rely on imports from abroad. That's why there's a lot of opportunities in terms of growth, money making in farming. Plus, both of these guys, they're not coming from farming per se. I mean, they didn't have any experience starting out this business. So they had a lot of mistakes. And what they're recommending is learn from others' mistakes. Go and work with a farm, learn, and then start your own farm, they're saying. And both are using innovation. They're not following what their parents have been doing in terms of farming, but they're actually using crossbreeding technologies or inbreeding technologies or blockchain for that matter, and traceability. These are brand new concepts. And this is not UK, this is not US, this is Gambia and Turkey. Okay, so as long as these technologies are available, countries like Turkey and Gambia can be applying them. And he's saying, as long as we are producing and selling the stuff that we believe should be eaten. So we won't sell anything we won't eat, he's saying. And that's why he's using his family drinking milk, their own milk, as his own commercial. So both of these guys are saying you got to keep learning and investing in quality if you want to succeed. Not quantity, but quality. And farming is a highly traditional business, but if you can bring it, combine it with innovation.